1997.
Right when it opened?
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's a long time, Sandra.
Yes, it is. It
Yeah.
doesn't seem that long. So my name is Sandra Reed. I am a guide and ritual master in the Modern Mystery School, and I've been with the school for about 24 years now. I've had many different kinds of experiences with teachings and healing work, and taught many classes. I was a Kabbalah teacher for many years and taught Enochian magic and continue to do so. I have 3 apprentices that I am handing that down to now, and they are doing a superb job with that. I'm here today to record this video so that people can understand something more about the Mystery School, and we're here at my home. As a child, I have always been very spiritual. I grew up in the First Baptist Church in Lansdale, Pennsylvania, and I was always very active in the church, and that continued throughout my life until I would say in my 30s. I was at a family gathering and someone was talking about reincarnation. And I'm thinking, what is this? And they were talking about someone by the name of Edgar Cayce. And of course that was totally new to me. I had never heard of such a thing. But it got me curious, and it was like something went off in me. It clicked. I want to know more about this. So I went home and started to read about, got books on Edgar Cayce from the library and started reading all about, him and his life. And from then on, I just started to explore more and more, anything to do with the spiritual side of things, something more than what I had grown up on. I had a pen pal that I've been writing to since the age of 9 years old. And I still write to her today. We're still, communicating after all these years. I'm almost 80, so that's a lot of years. I wanted to visit her, and she lived in Scotland. I was going to do this all by myself. So this was a big deal for me at that time. I call it my rite of passage because I was married, I had 2 children, and, I had a husband who was not very interested in the things that I was learning about. And in fact, he would belittle me a lot, for that. But, it never deterred me from moving forward. It was a huge shift for me to go from being the mother, the wife, the roles, and living life like that and never going anywhere really to speak of, never any kind of personal empowerment type of growth. And for me, this was my first step in that. I was never the same after that trip. I did a lot more meditation, just a lot more focus on spiritual things. I was not, at that point I wasn't working, so I was home with the kids and, doing the normal things that a wife and mother does. But at the same time, I was really exploring really deeply, and I started to do healing work. I connected with a group of people that were doing healing work, energy healing work. And so it was learning about there is more to life than just this world, and seeing so much more and working with the energy too. I went through a healing thing that really was extremely, very painful and difficult, because you have to think I grew up in the 50s. I fit into certain roles. I had all of those roles as that's who I am. I didn't even know that there was anything more. But as I started to explore more and more, I began to see I'm not these things. I thought I had the ideal marriage. I thought I had, everything was perfect, da 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 da. And I was rationalizing up to the gazoo, I left the church, which was a big deal. I couldn't go from being, a church person, very involved with the church and the teachings and doctrines of the church, into a whole different experience. I needed to come to an understanding that there was more to life than just the physical, more to life than just what I had been taught. And it got to be the point, it came to a point where I really couldn't even be in church anymore, because it was just so not true to me what they were saying. And I thought, well, maybe I should go and join the choir and go and sit behind the minister, and maybe I would have a different perspective. So I joined the choir. I sat there, and it was the same thing. I just could not abide what he was teaching them, because I knew that there was so much more. There was no one around me who understood that. No one. And everyone around me thought that I was really, off my rocker. So, but I wasn't, and I knew. And it got to the point where I really couldn't trust anything at all. At the worst moments, and believe me, there were many moments when I was absolutely devastated, because all my masks had to be ripped off, and they were literally ripped off. And I was so wanting to be able to get out of that role of that's who I am, that's what I am. I am a mother, I am a wife, I am a nurse, I am this, I am that. But it was never about who I am. I said, I am me, I am Sandra. The only thing that I really trusted was God and nature. And that's what got me through those times.
What are you defining these masks as?
Well, they're like roles that we take on and create an identity around. And it's a way for us to fit into society and to feel secure and safe. We serve in those capacities, we act in those capacities, but we aren't those capacities. It's the difference between being in the energy of that and seeing that as your whole being, your whole identity, versus recognizing it as something that you do, but it's not who you are. At the time, there was no one to tell me or help me. I couldn't trust a psychologist. How could I go to a psychologist? They wouldn't know anything about spirituality. They didn't know. They didn't understand these things at that time. I decided to go back to school. I wanted to get my degree in nursing, and I took a psych course that was called Current Psychotherapies. And it was like I aced the course because I knew every single one of those modalities. I had lived them without even knowing what I was doing. It's like I'm reading a textbook that explains my life to me. That was what it felt like. That just continually brought me up to where I was ready for the mystery school. I was divorced, and then 6 years later I remarried. My husband and I, we were on a trip, and there was a woman on that trip. I just enjoyed her company. She was, and we became friends. After a while, she connected with Founder Gudni, and she became initiated. And then she called me up one day and she said, Sandra, you have to do it. So then I went out to Utah and met Founder Gudni. We were in a hotel, and it was a small class. It's now called Empower Thyself. We just met in this little conference room, and we were initiated in the adjoining room.
What was that like? What was it like hanging out with Founder Gudni back then? How do you even describe Founder Gudni to people if people ever ask you?
I describe him as the Renaissance man. I see him as having so many abilities and talents and gifts and life experiences that he's just not your normal Joe down the street. He's just someone that I feel is going to continually bring me to deeper levels of understanding about myself and about the world and mysteries and all of it. And I've seen that to be the case. And it's what kept me in the school all these years, because there's always something more,
That's
It doesn't
4 years
end.
later, it's something more.
There's always something more. And I think that's one of the things about Founder Gudni that I think is really important to note, is that he always leaves you wanting. He always leaves you wanting more. He does have a way of knowing how to do that, how to keep your focus, your attention, as he is bringing you more information, more knowledge, more understanding, and then he alludes to something more coming, something else, and he makes good on it. It's not something that he just says and then it never happens, which is what some people promise. But he doesn't really promise it, but he does open the vision, the expansion. So that's how he opens your awareness to something more coming in, something more that we can deepen in our wisdom and understanding.
And then eventually follows through with it.
Yeah. He's just amazing. He's an amazing man. He's done a lot in his life and done it well. And here he is opening up the mystery school in the United States. And of course, now look at it, in a tiny little community in Utah. Now look at it, it's all over the world. And it's a testimony to the power of the energy and the teachings that he has been handing down to us through the years.
And what kept you going then back then? What intrigued you? What did you find interesting? What made you keep going?
I saw the value, and I saw that there was always something more. And I had connected to different teachings or different groups or so forth. I always saw the end point. When I connected with the mystery school, it's like I'm home. And this is where I can really begin to explore much more deeply the mysteries of life and mysteries of myself and other people and the world, and really grow and be of service. It was a whole different way of working in the world. It was not about, a job, money. It was more about really assisting others to see something more as well. The teachings don't change. The teachings are ancient and they are real.
If you had to sum up what it is we're learning and what it is you're moving towards.
How to be a god and a goddess. How to awaken to our true nature. How to open our hearts and minds to something that is beyond the physical. And to be able to not only awaken to it and open to it, but to live it.
How do you define God?
Yeah, well, I think our understanding of God changes as we grow. We can't really define God. Because to define something is to limit it, and obviously God is unlimitable. It's beyond the beyond. It's not anything that we can put into a box and say this is God. The only thing we can really do to understand more about who and what God is to look in the mirror. And then we can look through the eyes of ourselves and see that God is within us. And then we can begin to get a little bit more of an understanding of what this nature of God is, as we are embracing more of the qualities and the energy and the mind of that greater aspect of who we are and what we are. We are eternal beings. So we are always, evolving into the understanding of what that is. This amazing beings that we are. This God aspect that is manifesting itself through the physical form. We are so much more than we think. And, we're in a physical form and we're in a physical body and we're physical earth, but there's just so much beyond that.
We're also a school of, magic and mystery. So I'm curious, how do you define magic? How do you work with magic? What is magic for you?
Well, it's life. Life is magic. Something amazing is happening here. And you can look at anything in your life. When I'm working in the garden, when I'm doing things in the kitchen or in the house or anywhere, or teaching a class or whatever, here I am creating something out of nothing. Just look at that garden down there, you know. I mean, this thing around these trees here was a bunch of weeds, and it was nothing, and it was ugly. I saw something that could be there, and so I had that vision. That's magical. And then to actually actualize that vision is magical, because I took something that was not very beautiful and created something better, something more. Something is happening, something is shifting and changing and becoming, something is magically appearing in a physical world, you know. And if that's not magic, I don't know what is, you know, to create from nothing into something amazing. Look at this world, you know, the beauty of the world. That's magical. So God is a great magician. And so are we, because we are gods and goddesses too. So we are great magicians as well, creating all the time. It's not hocus pocus. You know, it's not wave your magic wand and then something magical happens. It's like put your hands out, see the vision, use your imagination, and then something happens, you know, as you bring that into, you know, follow down through the tree of life. You know, from an idea, you know, thought idea, all the way down to manifestation. It's a magical life that we live, especially as we are perceiving our world and ourselves in a whole new way as we go through the steps and stages of the mystery school and grow and evolve and become more empowered. We become much more adept at creating magic with our lives, you know? And it's like everything we do becomes magical.
Show as many faces as possible, but also not overwhelming people. You know, how do I really grasp that universality of this work? How do I grasp the fact that it is a global thing? How do I grasp that, you know, we people like we've met?
What I see is that each area has its own energy, and the ritual masters and teachers and guides that work in that area have a different focus, a different slant, it's the cultural differences, you know, that I think would make it really interesting for how the mystery school has evolved into including all of these many, many different cultures and ways of being that, you know, we talk about the universality of the mystery school. In spite of the fact that there's all these different cultural ways that people live and have their worldview around that, still the universal teachings and the truths of the mystery school that we get handed down remain. They remain stable, and it creates that universality, even in the differences of the culture. I did a lot of the things that were happening early on in the mystery school, and some of that took place in Tokyo. And in the meantime, Miss Dave came in and started to take on more responsibility with the administrative aspect and start to steer more of the program. So it was a growing thing, and there were times when it was a little bit, you know, not clear exactly how it was going to look down the road, but it nevertheless kept moving forward. anytime there's growth and evolution in any kind of thing like the mystery school or anything, there's always going to be some, flux and flow and changes, and well, maybe we don't want to do that, maybe we want to do it this way. And of course that was part of too. Not anything to do with the teachings and the actual, programs that we do, but in the way that they were conducted, in the way that people were being guided along in their path, and it became necessary for those things to happen. And Ipsissimus Dave was the perfect guy to do that. He's done a super job with seeing to it that the mystery school survived through all of the growing pains.
So, you have people from all over the country, all over the world, hop on a plane, register, go through all these hoops to congregate together and do a program, do a class. And I'm curious about, what you would say is the importance of that for all of us and how that's special.
I think the fact that they put that much value on it to interrupt their lives, their daily flow, to pay the expense from the travel, to disrupt their children and their animals and, husbands or whatever, to pursue something. There's something that they see, that is going to be of value and push them forward in their lives. And they wouldn't do it if they didn't see that. It would be too much, and they'd throw up their hands and say, why would I want to do that? And also there's a whole concept of community, because there's a huge feeling of belonging when you come into this mystery school. And it may be in any kind of program or church or whatever, but I think it's special for the mystery school because it's on a whole different level of awareness of each other. And I think one of the things that is really important with that sense of community and of belonging is that we don't judge each other. For the most part we don't. There's certain ego things that come up from time to time, but I think there is a huge amount of respect for the peers, for your colleagues, and for your teachers and guides. And that's respect that's well earned, because they've walked through the hoops. They've set aside their lives over and over again. And I can tell you, in the very beginning, when back in the Utah days is what I call them, I can't tell you how many times the program dates changed. And it got to the point where I couldn't even book my flight until almost the time for the travel, because it was changing constantly. And I think it was character building in that process, because to do this work, to be of service to humanity, to come to higher levels of service and working on global levels, you have to have a high level of commitment. Otherwise, you would not last very long. You would give up because it gets too hard.
Yeah, there's a lot of discipline on our path.
Well, we know that it's discipleship, okay? Discipline is discipleship. Because discipline can be a very end thing. It's like discipline, and you feel like it's going to stop everything. It's not going to allow for flow. That's what it feels like to many people. And so they don't want to be disciplined because it stops their flow. That's the feeling that they have. Would you say that's so? In truth, it does the opposite. Because if you are in free flow, you may not be accomplishing a whole lot because you're going from here to here to here. You're just flowing, going with the flow, and just doing whatever comes up. You might make a little bit of progress, but it's not as focused as it could be. Your focus is your key. Your focus is your key. If you are not disciplined, are you focused? So, the focusing aspect of it is keeping you in a certain format forward, a movement forward. The discipline comes in is when you're able to take your energy. It's all about energy. It's all about how you are flowing energy. And the discipline aspect of it helps you to flow that energy in a particular channel that you want it to go in. You're given a certain amount of energy each day. What are you going to do with it? So if you're disciplined, if you're allowing yourself to be disciplined and following a certain format for the flow of your energy, you can accomplish a lot more than if you spread it all over the place and your energy is all over.
And how would you describe, the discipline of our mystery school, like the channel that
Well,
we're working with?
It's giving us the parameters. It's giving us the roadmap. It's giving us the with a lot of variation, but it's giving us a form to walk through, to walk in, to keep us in a certain movement forward and upward, so that we're not like the fire hose all over the place with our energy. It gives us structure. Discipline is structure. And we need a certain amount of structure. We need a certain amount of, freedom to flow. And there needs to be a balance with that, because there's the containment of your energy, the discipline of it, and there's the full expression of it. And either way without the other is not going to work too well. You're not going to accomplish the manifestation that you want, the action. So I think you need to have a certain amount of discipline to be able to walk a certain path. And the mystery school gives you those parameters and guidelines. And yet it doesn't say you have to do it this way. It gives you plenty of room to expand. And that's the balance between having a certain path and the ability to expand your energy and move that path a little wider and wider and wider and open and open and open to move forward and upward. Back in the day, and I don't know if he's done it recently, but Founder Gudni has always used the analogy of a mountain. And, at the base of the mountain, you've got all the people who are, come, come onto the path. And there you've got all these people down here. But, as the mountain goes up and it gets harder and harder to climb and steeper, you see the people kind of coming to their comfort zone. And they sort of settle for that level. And they just sit there. And yet there are those rugged individuals who will just pursue anything, just get through anything to try to come to, that peak, that high point of awareness of themselves, of others, and of the path. And what happens is you get to the top, and of course, what do you see but another mountain? And that's the way that's how I would best describe the mystery school, because it's one mountain after another, and you're never done. You're never done climbing that mountain, and that's the mountain of knowing thyself, and there's nothing else on the planet that can bring you to those kinds of heights of awareness. They will take you only as far as the person who's leading them.
What do you mean by that?
If you have a guide, a guru, a leader, someone who is, the one you look up to take you to the mountain, your guide up the mountain, how far did that guy go? He can only take you as far as he went, he or she. Even if you look at, a minister guiding a flock of people, how far advanced, how deeply aware, how fully open to who they really are is that minister. They're searching, they're growing, they're looking for, something more in their lives. And they can only take their flock as far as they've gone. But I find in the mystery school, because you're your own teacher and guide, and you're being facilitated to come to that level of awareness, you will always have the opportunity, and you won't be following someone as he's my guide, my mentor. Of course, you'll have that on the way up to kind of encourage you and keep you moving forward for your own sake. But you're not going to be limited by that because of his or her level of expertise or level of moving forward on the path. You may surpass, the ones that have been your guide for many years. There's a concept of true service. I mean, anybody can do a service. I mean, if I sew a button on somebody's coat, that's a service. That's not necessarily true service. True service is something that is done without a thought of anything for yourself. It's an incredible kindness that you do for someone just spontaneously. It's not something that is going to get you accolades or win a prize or make a lot of money. It's not about that. There's many opportunities in the mystery school to provide services for people, whatever their need is, to just be there. So there's many levels of service. It's not one being better than another, but it's what your qualities, your capacity, your understanding, your knowledge, your level of awareness can do to make a difference in someone else's life, to make a difference in the world, to make a difference in someone's home. It's not an imposition, but you saw a need and you asked if you could assist. A service can be for one person, it can be for many, it can be for the whole world. It depends on what your level of training and your level of awareness and your level of commitment is to be available to answer the call. It's an innate thing. It's an innate thing. It is that sense of we are one, and what impacts one impacts all. Don't give up. Don't give up. Follow your heart. Love yourself. Are you happy with your life? Are you searching for something more? What is it that is calling to you from within? I think there's a push from within that keeps people moving. And most people that are in the mystery school have followed that inner knowing, that inner push. There's something there that's driving them. And you could call it their soul, you could call it their guides, you could call it the hierarchy of light, but I think it's that God, goddess within us that pushes us to our greatness because it wants to express. And it wants to express through this unique individuality that we, each of us, is. It's the same in Kabbalah. If you want to get to the top, to the crown and the highest peak, and you have to be able to, you have to be willing to let go of attachments, to let go of opinions, and to open to your God essence. You have to be willing to shift out of your self-made image. And people have a hard time with that because it requires a certain surrender and a certain opening to something that they don't know yet. They don't see, they don't understand. They feel it, but they're scared. They may back away because it's too threatening to the ego's hold on the personality. And at first it's scary because I'm not worthy. How could this be? I'm not good enough. I make mistakes. I do all sorts of bad things sometimes, and so they feel it's something that they haven't earned. All of that stuff is indoctrination for how society works.
What do you find is the tipping point when people actually tip into, actually I am ready to accept this whole God, goddess thing in my heart?
Yeah, I think it varies from person to person. I don't think it's any one point. I think it is an accumulation that all of a sudden they come to this realization. It's like a step of faith, a leap of faith. But nobody's going to go leaping on faith, through a big gap in the mountain from one side to the other without some kind of reassurance from within. And I think that's part of that that God essence drive that is within each of us that makes us take that leap of faith. And it's not just one leap, it's many. You know, we don't just make one leap and we're done. You know, that's kind of ridiculous, isn't it? But you know, there's a lot of little leaps that we make, and sometimes they're bigger than others, and they shake us up. You know, and sometimes the leap of faith is simply going from one level of initiation to another. You know, because that's a huge leap of faith. Because where is that going to lead me? What's going to happen to me? What am I going to look like? What am I going to feel like? How will this change my life? You know, there's a lot of questions like that that come up when people are about ready to take that shift. Very practical issues come up around that. So a lot of people will back out, back off, and they'll just stay put. They're not ready to handle that kind of change and shift. The school pushes us to become empowered and to shift and change constantly, you know. And every healing that you do, every healing modality, every class, everything that you do in this progression in the school does that. It will shift you. It will change you. And if you're saying, wow, come on, bring it on, you know, everybody's cool with that, you know, then it's good. But a lot of people are not quite to that point, and they get scared. Yeah. So looking ahead is scary. Looking back is okay. That this is what I've done, and this is where it brought me. I'm safe. I'm not falling off the cliff. But at the same time, you know, if you're worried about the future and you're regretting the past, then you've got the two thieves happening there, stealing your energy. So you need to be in the here and now, you know, the precious present.
What's your upward movement, you, Sandra Reed? Like, where do you find your soul sort of progressing? Because, like, you know, you are pulling back from teaching and all these things.
Mm-hmm. I know that what is best for me and my soul and my movement forward is to keep a balance. Modern Mystery School has been good to me. You know, it has been a life journey for me, and will continue to be. I know that my work in the school is changing, and I don't yet see the future with that. Whatever it is, I know it'll be perfect, you know, for me, for my age, for my abilities, for all that I have to bring to other people and receive. Gives me a sense of joy, knowing that it doesn't end until I take my last breath on this planet. You know, I will be in service, doing something, you know, for the planet, for humanity, helping to bring peace to Earth and to people's lives, you know, the best I can for the rest of my life. Whether it be formally teaching in a class or helping a neighbor or doing whatever, you know, it's like I'm here, I'm serving, and that's what makes me happy.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.